Calling all entrepreneurs seeking smart new ways to growth hack their way to a more perfected type of lifestyle. The Tropical Entrepreneur Show is your destination. Now here's your host, Josh Denning.
Josh Denning back with another show, of course, continuing my mission to help you get a lot more customers that spend a lot more money and spend it with you a lot more often. And of course, also helping you become the dominant market authority in your industry. And today on the show, we're lucky to have Shola Abidoye with us, another special show. Shola is quite interesting, very interesting. In fact, she builds digital sales funnels for authors, coaches, consultants, and other business owners. And also works with a number of New York Times best-selling authors and is in fact an expert on paid lead generation. So we're going to talk about a lot of lead generation strategies on the show today, which is brilliant because business is when you've got stacks of leads, business becomes pretty easy because you're not scratching around wondering where the next customer is coming from because your funnel is always full. And I think often that makes the difference between a business that becomes very successful fairly easily and businesses that struggle. It's all about lead flow. I truly believe that. So Shola, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Josh. We're looking really forward to speaking to your audience about how to develop crisp sales funnels so that I can actually enjoy the selling process and get off the feast and famine sales cycle. And crisp just stands for controllable, repeatable, scalable, and predictable. And I actually developed and popularized that term. So I'm always excited to jump on the horn and to talk to people about their crisp sales funnels.
Awesome. I'm loving the sound of that already. Well, so in one sense, it sounds brilliant because of all the leads that'll be coming in, but it also sounds like it could be an enjoyable food like some potato crisps or something.
Sounds good to me.
So fantastic. I mean, yeah, that's just brilliant. It really is like lead generation. I talk about it all the time, and I'm always banging on about it at the office and at all the digital agencies I've ran. It's all, for me, the business it's always been about lead generation. I think it's the hardest thing for most business owners to get their head around, but the most important thing, and it often gets kind of swept under the rug while they just kind of get leads in any sporadic way they can. So to get to that crisp kind of level you talk about is just really, it's the grail for businesses. But before we go into more detail on that, I'd love if you could just, Shola, please give everyone a little bit of an introduction on yourself and the value you provide to the marketplace, please.
Absolutely. Well, I am speaking to you now here in Baja, Mexico. So I'm originally from Washington, D.C., went to a graduate school and lived in about 6 different European cities and countries. I actually lived between the States and Mexico and Europe. And I really got started in the business over 10 years ago. So originally had done investment banking and worked for a company called the Corporate Executive Board, a $900 million productized consulting firm. Is traded on the New York Stock Exchange under EXPD. So we hear a lot of people in the online space talking about productized consulting, but I actually work for America's largest productized consulting firm. And before that, I helped co-found the business development team at a startup in Silicon Alley. So the path to being an online entrepreneur started in the corporate world, and it eventually led to me working with funded startups and then launching my own. So I've kind of seen successes and failures in the entire spectrum of business, whether it's corporate work or VC work or running my own startups online.
Fantastic. So definitely a rich realm of experience there to draw on, and I guess lucky to have had all that experience in the productized consulting arena, as opposed to a lot of people just trying to get going with their businesses from learning from information products. You had that real true experience in lead generation and consulting to draw from. But so let's jump. Oh, actually, before we jump right into it, Shola, the question I always ask everyone that comes on the show is if you had to really draw on all of the experience that you've had and you're putting a chapter together in a book that you were sharing with other experts to share with a huge stack of 10,000-15,000 young entrepreneurs that were getting started with their businesses, and really you're asked to share your most important wisdom and advice with them in this chapter. What would you title your chapter, and what message would you share with them?
Wow, that's a really tantalizing question to think about. I would say that the title of the book would be Mastery. And if I may, I'd like to just double click on that just for a second. You see, the challenge for entrepreneurs is that we have to become professional revenue generators, right? So the thing is that every business owner wants the level of consistency in their business that they had at a job where you knew you were going to get paid every 2 weeks if you're in the States, or if you're in Europe, or maybe perhaps down in Oz once a month. And so we all are looking for that level of mastery in our revenue generation where we have the kind of predictability, where we have the income coming in like we did a job. In order to get that, you need to be a master of client acquisition. You need to become a master of revenue generation. And the way that you become a master is through studying what the masters do, is by practicing, deliberate practice, and is by a level of consistency and feedback that you only get when you're a real professional. And so I would ask anyone listening to this to ask themselves, have they actually deliberately practice the skill of revenue generation? If you were a tennis player, we just came off of the Australian Open. I love women's tennis. And what you see at that level of play, at the champion level, is that people are consistent. They practice the same shot over and over and over again. And so I'll just ask anyone who might be sitting there asking themselves, how can I build a business that's scalable? How can I build a business that gives me that sleep at night factor that I had when I was working for a job? And I would ask you, have you practiced revenue generation and client acquisition, doing the same thing the same way to get consistent results like a champion would? And I think mastery as an entrepreneur, as I said, really is about being a master revenue generator, be a master client acquisition professionals. And I think that when you become a master at that as an entrepreneur, you get the results that you want. So it can be 20 degrees on the East Coast like it is for me now, and you can live in Mexico for part of the year, so that you can live in Lisbon or London or Chiang Mai or wherever you want. When you become a master at revenue generation, then you can build that kind of lifestyle business that a lot of people, online, Joshua, a lot of people talk about living that tropical lifestyle, but very few people are actually living it.
Absolutely, yeah. And that was something that I realized pretty quickly. And it was interesting because I'd obviously been very successful in the sales arena before actually delving into this internet marketing world back in really the first time was around 2002, 2003. And it kind of